In today's video, I'm going to tell you about one of the most intense and dangerous hostage rescue missions I ever participated in during my 25 years of service in the United States Army. I'm Steve Harris. I'm 60 years old now, and this Operation Silent Thunder still gives me chills when I think about it. A mission where 3 innocent American lives hung in the balance, and where one wrong move could have meant death for all of us. Don't leave this video, because I'm going to walk you through every single detail of this operation that happened back in 2003. Every day on this channel, we bring you real military operation stories from my quarter-century of service. These aren't Hollywood fantasies. These are the real deal, the operations that shaped me and my brothers in arms. So if you want to hear more stories like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. And if you enjoy what you're about to hear, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what you think about this mission. It was October 15th, 2003. Somewhere in the mountainous regions of Afghanistan. I was a staff sergeant then, 38 years old, part of a specialized unit that handled high-risk operations, the kind of missions where success meant everyone goes home, and failure, well, failure wasn't an option we allowed ourselves to consider. I was in my bunk at our forward operating base, trying to catch some sleep after a grueling training exercise, when my pager went off at 0300 hours. That damn thing had a way of buzzing at the worst possible times, but when it did, you knew something serious was going down. The message was simple: report to ops immediately, Priority Alpha. Priority Alpha meant drop everything and run. In my years of service, I'd seen that designation maybe a dozen times, and each one had been a game changer. I threw on my uniform, grabbed my gear, and made my way through the dimly lit corridors of our base. The compound was unusually quiet for that hour. Even the usual sounds of generators seemed muted, as if the entire place was holding its breath. The operations center was buzzing with activity when I arrived. Officers huddled around maps, intelligence analysts frantically typed at their computers, and massive screens displayed satellite imagery of mountainous terrain. Major Richardson, our commanding officer, spotted me the moment I walked in. Richardson was old-school military, the kind of leader who inspired confidence just by being in the room. "Harris, good. You're here," Richardson said, his voice carrying that familiar tone of controlled urgency. "We've got a situation, and I need my best people on it." He led me to a briefing table where several other team members were already assembled. These were the guys you wanted next to you when things went sideways. There was Sergeant Martinez, our communications specialist. Martinez had this uncanny ability to maintain radio contact in the most impossible circumstances. Corporal Johnson, our medic, younger than most of us, but with steady hands and nerves of steel. Sergeant Thompson, our explosives expert, who could blow a door without waking the guy sleeping in the next room. Staff Sergeant Williams, our sniper, who could put a round through a dime at 800 meters. And finally, Sergeant Davis, our point man and close-quarters combat specialist with a sixth sense about danger. "Gentlemen," Richardson began, activating a laser pointer on the satellite map. 18 hours ago, 3 American diplomats were taken hostage by insurgent forces approximately 40 kilometers northeast of Kandahar. Ambassador Patricia Collins, Deputy Chief of Mission Robert Hayes, and Political Officer Sarah Mitchell were traveling to a humanitarian aid meeting when their convoy was ambushed. The Major indicated several positions on the map. The convoy consisted of 2 armored vehicles with a security detail of 6 personnel. Initial reports indicate the attackers used an IED to disable the lead vehicle, then small arms fire to overwhelm the security team. This was coordinated and professional, not opportunistic bandits. Richardson's expression grew grimmer. "Intelligence suggests the hostages have been moved here," he said. pointing to what appeared to be a compound in a valley surrounded by steep mountain terrain. It's a fortified position housing an estimated 30 to 40 insurgent fighters, well-armed and highly motivated. The satellite imagery showed a complex of buildings surrounded by high walls, with guard towers at strategic positions. The terrain was brutal: steep, rocky slopes, narrow valleys, and very limited approach routes. "Sir, what's the timeline?" Martinez asked. Richardson's jaw tightened. "The hostage takers have issued demands and given us 48 hours to comply, or they execute the hostages. The Pentagon has made it clear we don't negotiate with terrorists, but we also can't let 3 innocent Americans die. That's where you come in." Williams looked up from his rifle. "What about enemy air defenses, sir?" "Limited but present. Intelligence suggests shoulder-fired SAMs, probably Stingers. Nothing our pilots can't handle, but we need to be careful about approach routes." Johnson raised his hand. "Sir, what do we know about the hostages' condition?" "All 3 are believed to be alive and relatively unharmed. Their exact location within the compound is unclear. We may be going in somewhat blind on that front." The Major moved to another map. "The compound is in the Spingar Mountains. Peaks over 3,000 meters, narrow valleys, unpredictable weather. Current reports indicate a major storm system moving through over the next 24 hours, which will complicate air operations but might provide cover." Davis leaned forward. "Entry method, sir?" "Fast rope insertion from Black Hawks, approximately 2 clicks from target. You'll move on foot through mountain terrain. Stealth is paramount. If they know you're coming, this becomes an execution instead of a rescue." The weight of that statement settled over all of us. I'd been on enough operations to know the margin for error was essentially 0. One mistake and 3 innocent people would pay with their lives. Richardson continued, "You'll have 2 Black Hawks for insertion and extraction, Thunder 1 and Thunder 2. Weather's going to be a factor. The storm system will bring high winds and limited visibility. Not ideal, but it provides cover." Thompson had been studying the imagery. "Sir, what about local support?" "Negative. You're completely on your own. Nearest coalition forces are over 100 kilometers away. If things go south, you handle it yourselves until extraction." The room fell silent. This wasn't just difficult. It was potentially a suicide mission. Deep in enemy territory, outnumbered 6 to 1, with no backup and no margin for error. Richardson seemed to sense our thoughts. "I won't lie to you. This is as dangerous as it gets. If anyone wants to step back, now's the time. But if you're in, you're all in. These people are counting on us." I looked around the table at my teammates. These were men I'd served with for years, proven in combat. I could see the same determination in their eyes that I felt. "When do we leave, sir?" I asked. Richardson checked his watch. "Wheels up at 0600. 3 hours to prep gear, review intel, and get your heads right." The next few hours passed in preparation. I drew my M4 carbine from the armory, the same rifle that had never let me down. Martinez grabbed communications equipment, Johnson packed medical supplies, Thompson selected demolitions with surgical precision. Williams spent time with his sniper rifle, and Davis checked his close-quarters gear. We reviewed intelligence files repeatedly, memorizing satellite imagery, studying compound layout, discussing contingencies. The main building, several smaller structures surrounding walls with guard towers. Getting in would be challenging, but getting out with 3 additional people would be exponentially harder. Weather reports weren't encouraging. Wind gusts up to 40 knots, visibility near 0. For helicopter crews, extremely hazardous. For us, challenging conditions that would test every aspect of our training. As 0600 approached, we made final preparations. Each man checked equipment, painted faces with camouflage, secured anything that might make noise. we transformed ourselves into shadows. The walk to the helicopter landing zone felt different. There was tension in the air, understanding that this would test us like never before. The Black Hawks were waiting, rotors turning, the distinctive whop, whop, whop filling the pre-dawn air. Captain Morrison, lead pilot of Thunder 1, briefed us on weather conditions. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. We're flying into serious weather. Visibility near zero in the mountains, winds that'll make this rougher than a mechanical bull. But we've done this before. We climbed aboard, settling into the cramped compartment. The familiar smell of aviation fuel and hydraulic fluid filled the cabin. As we strapped in, each man seemed lost in thought, preparing for what lay ahead. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss how this story develops. Every day we bring you real military stories, and this is one of the most intense I ever lived through. The Black Hawk lifted off smoothly, ground falling away as we climbed into pre-dawn darkness. Through small windows, I watched our base lights grow smaller until they disappeared entirely, and we were flying over the vast, empty landscape of the Afghan wilderness. The flight path took us through increasingly treacherous terrain. As we gained altitude, weather began deteriorating exactly as predicted. Clear flying conditions quickly gave way to swirling winds and limited visibility. The helicopter began to buck and pitch as we encountered the storm system. Morrison's voice crackled through our headsets. "Thunder 1 entering weather now. Hold tight, gentlemen. It's about to get bumpy." That was an understatement. The aircraft pitched and rolled like a ship in heavy seas. Mountains below were completely obscured by clouds and precipitation, visible only as darker masses in an already dark landscape. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating storm clouds in brief, dramatic flashes. Martinez monitored communications, tracking weather updates. Storms intensifying, winds gusting 50 knots, visibility less than half a mile in the mountains. Davis, normally unflappable, looked uncomfortable. "Never thought I'd say this, but I'd rather be getting shot at than flying through this shit." Johnson was securing his medical kit against the violent motion. "At least if someone's shooting, we can shoot back," he replied, with the gallows humor typical of soldiers facing dangerous situations. The flight seemed endless, though it was only 90 minutes. As we approached insertion point, Morrison's voice came through again. "Thunder 1 to ground team, 5 minutes out from LZ. Weather's not improving. Very narrow window for insertion. Be ready to move fast." Through windows I could see nothing but swirling darkness. Mountains were invisible, shrouded in clouds and precipitation. The idea of fast roping into that void was intimidating, even for experienced operators. "Thunder 2 right behind us," Morrison continued. "Both birds hover just long enough for you to get out. Then we're pulling back. Extraction a designated point in 6 hours unless you call for emergency evac." The aircraft began descent toward the landing zone, pilots using instruments and night vision to navigate through treacherous terrain. The Black Hawk shuddered and bucked, engines straining against brutal wind gusts. "1 minute," Morrison called. We unstrapped and moved toward doors, preparing to fast rope into the unknown. The crew chief slid open the side door, immediately filling the cabin with wind, rain, and deafening rotor wash, echoing off invisible mountainsides. The darkness below was complete. No lights, no landmarks, just a black void we were about to drop into. 30 seconds! I positioned myself at the rope, looking down into the abyss. This was always the moment of truth, where planning gave way to execution and instinct. In seconds, we'd be on the ground in enemy territory, with nothing but training and each other. The crew chief held up his hand. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go, go, go! I grabbed the rope and dropped into darkness, feeling the familiar burns sliding through gloved hands. The descent seemed forever, falling through wind and rain into invisible landscape. When my boots hit solid ground, I immediately rolled away and took defensive position, rifle ready. Black Hawks were already pulling away, leaving us alone in the storm. One by one, teammates landed around me, each quickly moving to establish defensive perimeter. The silence following helicopter departure was almost deafening, broken only by wind howling through mountains and steady rain on our equipment. We were on the ground in enemy territory, 40 kilometers from friendly forces, surrounded by hostiles who would kill us without hesitation. The storm that made insertion treacherous would now be both ally and enemy, providing concealment but making navigation and communication difficult. Martinez worked to establish communications with base, radio struggling against atmospheric interference. Thompson checked demolitions, ensuring moisture hadn't compromised explosives. Johnson verified medical supplies survived intact. Williams assembled his sniper rifle, precision weapon broken down for transport, now being reassembled with practiced efficiency despite wind and rain. Davis studied a waterproof map with red-filtered flashlight, determining our position and planning route to target. "Comms are marginal," Martinez whispered. "I can reach base, but it's spotty with this weather." I checked equipment systematically, rifle functioning, ammunition secure, night vision operational despite moisture. Knife in place, backup weapon secure, first aid kit intact. Every piece chosen and positioned for maximum effectiveness. "All right, gentlemen," I whispered, gathering the team. "We're approximately 2 kilometers from target compound, bearing 045 degrees. Terrain's rough, rocky, steep, slippery as hell in this weather. We move slow, quiet, together. Remember, stealth is our primary weapon. If they know we're coming, those hostages are dead." The march to the compound was one of the most challenging I'd ever undertaken. Terrain was treacherous in good conditions. The storm made every step hazardous. We moved single file, Davis taking point with exceptional night vision, rest of us following at spaced intervals. Mountains seemed to amplify every sound, gravel crunching under boots, equipment rustling, even breathing seemed unnaturally loud. We balanced speed with stealth, covering ground quickly enough to reach the compound before dawn, while maintaining silence necessary to avoid detection. After an hour of careful movement, Davis held up his closed fist. "Stop and take cover." We froze, listening for whatever caused him to halt. Through wind and rain, I could hear voices speaking Arabic, growing closer. An enemy patrol was approaching. We pressed ourselves against rocky outcropping, weapons ready. 3 insurgents passed within 30 meters, close enough to hear individual footsteps and equipment clinking. One stopped directly in line with our position, saying something to his companions. For a moment, I thought we'd been discovered. My finger moved to the trigger, but after what felt like eternity, the man continued. The patrol disappeared into darkness, voices fading until swallowed by storm sounds. We remained motionless 10 more minutes, ensuring they were gone. Davis gave all clear, and we resumed movement. The encounter was a sobering reminder of how dangerous our situation was, deep in territory controlled by people who would kill us without hesitation. Terrain continued challenging us. Rocky slopes with loose shale, narrow ridgelines where a misstep meant fatal falls, thorny vegetation designed to snag equipment and make noise. Rain made everything slippery, wind strong enough to affect balance on exposed sections. But this was exactly what we'd trained for. Military had prepared us for every conceivable terrain and weather condition. Our equipment was designed for these conditions, tactics adapted for low visibility and difficult terrain. After nearly 3 hours of careful movement, Davis signaled we were approaching the compound. We moved into concealed observation position on a ridgeline overlooking the target, and for the first time could see our objective clearly through night vision. The compound was exactly as described, but seeing it in person made the challenge seem even more daunting. High stone walls surrounded cluster of buildings, guard towers at strategic points. Armed sentries moved along walls, AK-47s visible even in darkness. The main building appeared to be traditional Afghan structure, 2 stories with thick walls providing excellent protection. Several smaller buildings scattered around, probably storage and housing for fighters. Center courtyard would be completely exposed to fire from multiple directions. Williams studied the target through scope. I count 6 guards visible, 2 north wall, 2 south wall, 1 eastern tower, 1 patrolling courtyard. Probably more inside buildings. Thompson examined walls and gates, looking for entry points and demolition targets. Main gates heavily reinforced, but eastern wall section looks vulnerable, lower than the rest. No guards in that area. Davis mapped approach routes, studying terrain between our position and compound walls. We can use that dry creek bed to get within 100 meters unseen. From there, it's open ground to the wall. Martinez intercepted radio communications from inside, hoping for intelligence about guard rotations, hostage location, anything helpful. Picking up some chatter. Sounds routine but can't make out details. Johnson checked medical supplies, knowing that once we entered, casualty likelihood would increase dramatically. His job was keeping everyone alive and fighting effective, no matter how bad things got. I studied the compound through binoculars, trying to identify which building likely housed hostages. Intelligence was unclear on this crucial detail. Finding 3 people in multiple buildings could be like finding needles in haystacks. Main building was obvious choice, largest, most secure, where high-value prisoners would be kept. But insurgents weren't always predictable. They might have split hostages to make rescue difficult, or kept them in smaller, less obvious buildings to confuse rescue attempts. We'd have to search systematically if necessary, taking time we didn't have and increasing exposure. Don't leave this video now, because what happened next will absolutely blow your mind. The infiltration was just the beginning of a night that would test every single one of us in ways we never imagined. We were about to enter that compound, and what we found inside would change everything about this mission. "All right, gentlemen," I whispered, gathering my team for the final briefing before we initiated the assault. "Here's how we're going to do this. Williams, you take overwatch position here on the ridge. You've got clear sightlines to most of the compound, and your job is to eliminate any threats that might compromise the mission or endanger the hostages." Williams nodded, already selecting shooting positions and calculating ranges to various points in the compound. His rifle was capable of precise fire out to 800 meters, and from our current position, nothing in the compound was beyond his effective range. "Thompson, you're going to breach the eastern wall where it's lowest. Set a shaped charge, but make it quiet. We want to get inside before they know we're there. Davis, you take point once we're through the breach. Martinez, stay with me and maintain communications with Williams and base." I continued outlining the assault plan. "Johnson, your rear security until we locate the hostages, then you become their primary protection. Remember, these people have been in captivity for over 24 hours. They're going to be scared, possibly injured, definitely not thinking clearly. We need to get them calm and mobile quickly." The plan was simple in concept, but required flawless execution. We'd breach the wall simultaneously with Williams, engaging guards who posed immediate threats. Once inside, we'd move building by building until we found the hostages, neutralizing resistance as quietly as possible to avoid alerting the entire compound. "Extraction will be at the same LZ where we inserted," I reminded them. "Thunder 1 and Thunder 2 will be on standby, but they can't come in until we call. The storm should start clearing in about 2 hours, improving flying conditions, but possibly making us more visible." Davis had been studying compound layout intensely. "Boss, what if the hostages aren't in the main building? Do we have time to search every structure?" It was a good question, highlighting our biggest uncertainty. "We start with most likely locations and work systematically, but you're right. If they're scattered, this gets complicated. That's why stealth is crucial. The longer we operate without the entire compound knowing we're here, the better our chances." Martinez had been monitoring enemy communications and now had potentially useful intelligence. "I'm hearing references to the Americans and something about the basement room. Could be they're keeping hostages in a below-ground location, maybe in the main building." That was both good and bad news. Good because hostages were likely together. Bad because basement rooms were naturally defensible positions, difficult to assault and even harder to extract people from quickly. Thompson was making final preparations to his demolition equipment, carefully measuring explosive charges needed to breach the wall without creating noise and debris that would immediately alert every insurgent. His work required surgeons' precision and watchmakers' timing. "Charges set for minimum noise, maximum effect," he reported. "I can blow a hole big enough for all of us, but we'll have maybe 30 seconds before someone investigates the sound." Williams had identified primary and secondary shooting positions, calculating angles and distances for most effective overwatch. Good sight lines to both guard towers and most of courtyard. "Soon as you give the word, I can start dropping guards, but after first shot they'll know we're here." The moment of truth was approaching. We'd spent hours getting into position, studying the target, preparing for what would be one of the most dangerous operations any of us had attempted. 3 innocent lives depended on our ability to execute flawlessly. I checked my watch. We'd been on ground nearly 4 hours, dawn still 2 hours away. Timing was as good as it would get. Guards appeared settled into routine, storm providing concealment, equipment functioning despite harsh conditions. "This is it, gentlemen," I said quietly. "Everyone knows their job. We go in fast, get the hostages, get out. These people are counting on us to bring them home." Bisum, we moved down from observation position toward the compound, using the dry creek bed Davis had identified to conceal approach. Terrain was treacherous in darkness, loose rocks, unexpected drops that could cause injury or noise, compromising our mission. Thompson reached Eastern Wall first, quickly identifying where his charges would be most effective. The wall was old stone construction, probably built decades ago, with obvious weak points where mortar had deteriorated. He worked with practiced efficiency, placing shaped charges at precise locations, directing blast inward and creating breach large enough for rapid entry. Davis positioned himself next to Thompson, ready to be first through once wall was blown. His M4 was equipped with sound suppressor and night vision sight, allowing quick, quiet target engagement once inside. Martinez took position where he could maintain visual contact with Williams while communicating with Thompson. Radio set to Williams' frequency allowed instant coordination between overwatch and assault elements. Johnson and I completed the assault team, positioned to follow Davis through breach and begin systematic hostage search. Every man knew his role, equipment checked and rechecked, every contingency planned for. Thompson held up his hand, indicating ready to initiate breach. Williams confirmed he had targets identified, ready to engage. Martinez verified communications clear. Davis chambered a round, prepared to lead us into essentially a fortified enemy position. This was the moment where months of training, years of experience, and absolute trust in each other would determine success or failure. Whether 3 innocent people went home to families or died in a basement room in Afghanistan's mountains. I keyed radio one final time. "Thunderbase, this is ground team. Beginning phase 2. Hostage rescue in progress." Response crackled through my earpiece. "Copy. Ground team. Thunder 1 and 2 standing by for extraction. Good hunting." Thompson looked at each of us, confirming readiness. Davis had hand on Thompson's shoulder, ready to move instantly charges detonated. Williams tracked a guard through scope, prepared to eliminate threat the moment needed. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The explosion was surprisingly quiet, more sharp crack than thunderous boom, but devastatingly effective. Wall sections simply disintegrated, leaving ragged hole large enough for a man to step through. Thompson had calculated perfectly. Enough explosive to breach barrier, not enough to wake everyone in compound. Davis was through before dust settled, weapon up and ready. I followed immediately with Johnson and Martinez close behind. Compound's courtyard stretched before us, dimly lit by few electric lights, largely empty except vehicles parked near main building. We moved across open ground in tactical formation, each man covering different sector, ready to engage any threats. Main building loomed ahead. two-story structure with thick walls and small windows, making it both difficult to assault and easy to defend. As we reached building entrance, Martinez held up his hand. He was hearing something on enemy frequency. After intense listening, he whispered urgently, "They know something's wrong. Someone heard the breach charge. They're sending people to investigate." Our stealth window was closing rapidly. In minutes, maybe seconds, entire compound would be alerted, and this would transform from covert rescue to full-scale firefight. We needed those hostages fast, before insurgents decided to execute them rather than let them be rescued. I made a command decision determining mission success or failure. We go loud. Williams, start dropping guards. Everyone else, we assault the main building now, fast and hard. Williams's sniper rifle cracked across the compound, eliminating guard in Eastern Tower. Almost immediately, shouts of alarm erupted from various locations as insurgents realized they were under attack. Davis kicked in main building door with practiced efficiency, and we flowed inside like water. Weapons trained on every corner and potential threat. Interior was dimly lit, filled with acrid smell of unwashed bodies, cooking odors, and gun oil. We were inside the enemy's stronghold. Shooting had started, and now the real fight for 3 American hostages was about to begin. The building's interior was a maze of narrow corridors and small rooms, environment favoring defenders over attackers. We moved methodically, clearing each room with practiced efficiency. So far, we'd found sleeping areas, weapon storage, and what appeared to be communications center. Johnson had taken point as we approached stairway leading to basement level. If intelligence about the Americans in basement room was accurate, this was where we'd find our objectives. Sound of gunfire from outside was intensifying. Williams was still providing overwatch, but I could hear multiple AK-47s returning fire. Insurgents were organizing response faster than hoped, meaning extraction timeline was accelerating whether we'd found hostages or not. "Movement downstairs," Davis whispered. "Weapon trained on basement entrance." "I can hear voices. Sounds like English." First good news since entering compound. If Davis heard English in basement, hostages were likely alive and in that location, but it also meant guards were probably down there, making rescue infinitely more complicated. Martinez monitored both tactical frequency and enemy communications. Williams reports at least 15 insurgents converging on main building. We've got maybe 2 minutes before this place is surrounded. 2 minutes to find 3 hostages, neutralize guards, get them mobile, begin extraction. Sounded impossible, but impossible was just another word for Tuesday in our line of work. I made the call. "Johnson, hold upstairs. Don't let anyone get behind us. Martinez, stay with Johnson. Coordinate with Williams. Davis, you're with me. We're going downstairs." Basement stairs were narrow and steep, leading into almost complete darkness. Night vision gave us significant advantage, but we assumed anyone down there would be ready. Davis moved down like a ghost, each footstep carefully placed to avoid noise. Bottom of stairs had short corridor with 2 doors, one each side. Light visible under right door. We could hear voices, both Arabic and English. Hostages were behind that door, but so were captors. Davis positioned on one door side while I took the other. We could hear at least 2 different Arabic voices and what sounded like a woman crying softly. One hostage was in distress. We needed to act immediately. Through hand signals, Davis indicated ready for dynamic entry. I held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. On 0, Davis kicked door and we both flowed in, weapons trained on any threats. Scene was both better and worse than expected. All 3 hostages were alive, appeared relatively unharmed, sitting against wall with hands tied. Ambassador Collins looked defiant, despite circumstances. Deputy Chief Hayes appeared injured but conscious. Political Officer Mitchell was the one crying. But there were 4 insurgents, not 2 we'd estimated. 2 armed with AK-47s, 1 with pistol, 4th reaching for what appeared to be radio, probably to alert compound that hostages were being rescued. Time seemed to slow as training and instinct took over. Davis engaged the two with rifles while I focused on Pistol Man and Radio Guy. Room filled with gunfire as both sides engaged simultaneously. Insurgent with pistol got one shot off that went wide before Davis put 2 rounds center mass and dropped him. Man reaching for radio never completed movement. My rounds caught him before transmission. But fourth insurgent, positioned behind equipment in corner, had clear shot at hostages and was bringing weapon to bear on Ambassador Collins. Every hostage operator's nightmare. Captors might execute prisoners rather than let them be rescued. Davis was engaging this target, but angle wasn't perfect. An insurgent was using hostages as partial cover. I had clearer shot, but it would have to be precise. Any miss could hit people we were trying to save. Leave a comment below and tell me what you think happened in that split second. Do you think I made the shot? Will we get all the hostages out alive? Let me know your thoughts, because what happened next tested every single one of us like never before. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss these real military stories. Every day, we bring you authentic experiences from someone who was actually there. The shot I took in that basement room was one of the most important of my entire military career. Everything we'd worked for, everything we'd risked, came down to that single moment when training, experience, and determination had to combine into one perfect action. The insurgent in the corner fell before he could harm any hostages, but our situation was far from resolved. Gunfire in basement had definitely been heard throughout compound, and we could hear boots on floor above as more insurgents entered main building. "Martinez to basement team," came urgent voice in my earpiece. "You've got company coming down those stairs, at least 6 hostiles moving toward your position." Davis immediately moved to cover stairway while I began cutting zip ties, binding hostages' hands. Ambassador Collins was first to speak, voice steady despite everything she'd endured. "Thank God," she whispered. "Are you Americans? How many of you are there?" "Yes, ma'am, U.S. Army," I replied quickly while freeing her hands. "We're here to get you out, but we need to move fast." "Are any of you injured?" Deputy Chief Hayes spoke up, voice strained. "I think my shoulder's dislocated, but I can move. Sarah's been sick, some kind of fever." Political Officer Mitchell was indeed showing signs of illness, pale, sweating, clearly weak. Johnson would need to evaluate her condition, but right now we had more immediate concerns. Footsteps on stairs were getting closer, and Davis was preparing to engage multiple targets in confined space. "Can you all walk?" I asked while checking Mitchell's condition quickly. She was coherent but definitely unwell, possibly dehydrated and suffering from captivity stress. "We can manage," Ambassador Collins replied with determination that made her effective in diplomatic role. "Just tell us what you need us to do." First insurgent appeared at bottom of stairs, and Davis immediately engaged, sound of his suppressed rifle barely audible over chaos erupting throughout building. Man dropped, but Davis was already shifting aim to next target behind him. "Johnson, we need you down here now," I called into radio. "We've got the packages, but Mitchell needs medical attention and we're about to be overrun." Johnson's voice came back immediately. "On my way, Martinez is covering upstairs." I helped Mitchell to her feet, while Ambassador Collins assisted Hayes. Despite their ordeal, all 3 hostages were showing remarkable composure and determination to cooperate. This was exactly the behavior that could mean difference between success and failure. Davis had eliminated 3 insurgents on stairway, but we could hear more movement upstairs and knew our defensive position was temporary. We needed to move toward extraction, but getting 3 weakened civilians through firefight and across mountain terrain would challenge every aspect of our training. Johnson appeared at top of stairs, providing covering fire as Davis began moving hostages upward. "Mitchell's running fever, showing dehydration signs," he reported after quick medical assessment. "She can move, but needs support." Martinez's voice crackled through radios with urgent update. "Williams reports approximately 20 insurgents surrounding building. They're setting up for sustained assault. We need extraction now." I keyed radio to contact helicopter support. Thunder Base, this is ground team. We have the packages and need immediate extraction. LZ is hot. Repeat. LZ is hot. Response came immediately. Thunder 1 is airborne and en route. Estimated time to LZ is 12 minutes. Can you hold that long? 12 minutes might as well have been 12 hours. We were trapped in buildings surrounded by hostile forces, with 3 civilians needing protection and medical attention. Our ammunition was limited, and enemy knew exactly where we were. But this was exactly the scenario we'd trained for. Not comfortable, controlled training conditions, but the real thing where people's lives hung in balance and there was no room for error. We need to break contact and move toward extraction point, I decided. Davis, you take point with Ambassador Collins. Johnson, you support Mitchell. She's your priority medical case. Martinez, you stay with Hayes, and I'll provide rear security. Plan was simple in concept, but required perfect execution under worst possible conditions. We needed to move 5 people, 3 weakened civilians, across open ground under enemy fire, then traverse 2 kilometers of mountain terrain to reach extraction, all while being pursued by insurgents who knew area better than we did. William's voice came through radios, with update making our situation even more desperate. Ground team, be advised. Tracking vehicle movement on access road. Looks like reinforcements arriving, estimate 2 vehicles with additional personnel. More insurgents meant our already slim chances were getting worse by the minute. But there was no choice. We had to move now, while we still had some surprise element and before enemy could organize coordinated assault. Thunder 1, this is ground team. I radioed helicopter support. We are moving to extraction now. LZ will be hot, and we're going to need immediate suppressive fire on our arrival. Copy, ground team. We're armed and ready to provide fire support. Stay alive until we get there. Davis led our small convoy up basement stairs, weapon trained on every corner and doorway. Main floor had been transformed into battlefield, bullet holes in walls, overturned furniture, acrid gunpowder smell filling air. Martinez had done excellent job holding defensive position, but insurgents were clearly massing for major assault. Ambassador Collins was moving well despite ordeal, staying close behind Davis and following hand signals with quick intelligence of someone accustomed to high-stress situations. Her diplomatic experience hadn't prepared her for combat, but natural leadership qualities were helping her adapt. Hayes was struggling more with injured shoulder, but Martinez provided needed support to keep moving. Injury appeared painful, but not life-threatening, and Hayes was pushing through discomfort with determination that had made him effective in government service. Mitchell was our biggest concern. Johnson's assessment confirmed dehydration and what appeared to be early infection stages, possibly from poor sanitary conditions during captivity. She was conscious and mobile, but clearly weak, would need constant support to maintain pace needed for extraction. We reached hole Thompson had blown in compound wall, but tactical situation had changed dramatically. Insurgents had repositioned forces and were now covering all obvious exit routes. Getting through breach would put us directly in line of fire from at least 3 different positions. Williams had been tracking enemy movement from overwatch position and provided tactical assessment confirming what we could see from ground level. Multiple hostiles positioned around compound perimeter. I can provide covering fire, but you're going to be exposed for at least 50 meters once you leave building. 50 meters of open ground under enemy fire while protecting 3 civilians with limited ammunition and no backup. The kind of situation that separated professional soldiers from everyone else, where training, experience, and sheer willpower had to overcome impossible odds. I made another command decision. Williams, start putting rounds downrange. Suppress anything that moves. Everyone else, when I give signal, we move fast and don't stop until we reach cover. Williams's sniper rifle began echoing across compound as he engaged targets systematically. His precision shooting was devastating to insurgent positions. Each shot eliminated threat and forced others to take cover instead of maintaining effective fire on our escape route. "Go! Go! Go!" I shouted, and our group burst through wall breach. Davis led with Ambassador Collins close behind, both moving with speed that comes from knowing your life depends on reaching next cover. Martinez and Hayes followed, Hayes grimacing with pain but maintaining pace despite injured shoulder. Johnson was practically carrying Mitchell, his medical training allowing him to provide needed support while maintaining weapon readiness. I brought up rear, rifle trained on building we'd just left, ready to engage any insurgents who might pursue. Sound of incoming fire was immediate and intense. AK-47 rounds snapped past us, kicking up dirt and rock fragments as we sprinted across open ground. Insurgents' accuracy was affected by Williams' suppressive fire, but there were enough that some rounds came uncomfortably close. We reached cover of creek bed that had concealed our approach, but relief was temporary. Radio chatter Martinez was monitoring indicated insurgents were organizing pursuit teams and had general idea of our escape route. They might not know exactly where extraction point was, but they knew we had to move through mountains to reach it. Make sure you stay subscribed to this channel because I post new military operation stories every single day. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Also, make sure you hit that like button if you're enjoying this story, and check out the materials I've got pinned in the first comment below about military tactics and equipment. Thunder 1, this is ground team, I radioed as we began moving through creek bed toward higher ground. We are clear of compound and moving toward extraction. Be advised, we have one casualty requiring medical attention and are being pursued by unknown number of hostiles. Copy. Ground team. Thunder 1 is 8 minutes out from LZ. Thunder 2 is providing area reconnaissance and reports multiple heat signatures moving in your general direction. 8 minutes to cover nearly 2 kilometers of mountain terrain while protecting 3 civilians and being chased by insurgents probably more familiar with area than we were. It was going to be close, assuming we could make it at all. The terrain that had challenged us during insertion became even more difficult with the added burden of protecting 3 people who weren't trained for this kind of movement. Every obstacle we'd overcome through training and experience became major challenge when helping someone who'd never done anything more physically demanding than walking through an airport. Ambassador Collins was handling physical demands better than expected, but clearly reaching limits of endurance. "How much farther?" she asked during brief halt to check our route. "About 1 kilometer, Davis replied, consulting GPS unit. "Terrain gets steeper ahead, but once we reach ridgeline, it's mostly downhill to extraction point." Hayes was struggling more each passing minute. His shoulder injury was affecting balance and mobility, and rough terrain was making condition worse. Martinez was doing excellent job providing support, but Hayes might not be able to maintain pace much longer. Mitchell was in worst condition. Despite Johnson's efforts to keep her hydrated and mobile, combination of illness and physical demands was taking serious toll. She was conscious and cooperative, but clearly operating on reserves that wouldn't last much longer. Williams had been leapfrogging from position to position, maintaining overwatch on our movement while tracking insurgent pursuit teams. His reports were becoming increasingly urgent as enemy closed distance. "Ground team, you've got approximately 12 hostiles moving along valley floor, maybe 6 minutes behind your current position. They're moving faster than you are and appear to know exactly where they're going." That last part was particularly concerning. If insurgents knew terrain well enough to predict our route to extraction point, they might be able to set up ambush or reach landing zone before we did. Either scenario would turn our rescue mission into death trap. I made tactical decision, adding risk, but might save our lives. We're taking direct route up the ridge. It's steeper and more exposed, but it's shorter and they won't expect it. Davis immediately understood implications. "That's going to be tough on the packages, boss. Steep climb, loose rock, and if we get caught in the open..." I know. But if we stay in Valley, they're going to catch us before we reach extraction. At least on Ridge, Williams can provide better overwatch and we'll have high ground if we have to make a stand. Climb up Ridge was brutal. What would have been challenging for fit, experienced soldiers became nearly impossible when assisting people already at limits of physical capability. Every step required careful placement to avoid loose rocks that could cause fall or create noise, alerting pursuers to exact location. Ambassador Collins continued showing remarkable determination, but I could see she was struggling with altitude and physical demands. "I'm slowing you down," she said during one brief rest. "Maybe you should leave me and come back later." "That's not happening, ma'am," Davis replied immediately. "We all go home together, or nobody goes home. That's how this works." Hayes was in obvious pain, but continued pushing forward with mental toughness that had made him successful in government career. Martinez was essentially carrying him up steeper sections, but Hayes never complained or asked to stop. Mitchell was barely conscious, supported almost entirely by Johnson's medical expertise and physical strength. Her condition was deteriorating, and she would need immediate medical attention once we reached extraction helicopters. Sound of pursuit was getting closer. We could hear voices echoing off mountain walls as insurgents followed our trail up valley. They were moving faster, unburdened by injured civilians and familiar with terrain that was foreign to us. Williams had moved to position where he could cover our climb while monitoring pursuit teams. I can see them now. Definitely 12, maybe more. They're spread out in search formation, but all moving toward your general area. We were maybe 300 meters from Ridge Crest when Mitchell collapsed. Johnson immediately began medical assessment while rest of us established defensive perimeter, but it was clear she couldn't continue without significant assistance. "She's dehydrated and running high fever," Johnson reported after quick examination. "I can get her conscious and mobile again, but she needs IV fluids and medication I don't have." Martinez was monitoring enemy communications and had news making our situation even more desperate. "They're calling in additional units. Sounds like they're trying to coordinate with teams that arrived in vehicles. They want to surround entire area." I looked at my watch. We were supposed to meet extraction helicopters in less than 5 minutes, but we were still several hundred meters from landing zone and moving far too slowly. Insurgents were closing from behind, additional enemy forces were being brought in, and one of our objectives was barely conscious. This was the moment in every difficult mission where leadership training and combat experience had to combine with pure determination to find a solution that would save everyone. There was no manual for this situation, no training exercise that could fully prepare you for reality of being responsible for lives of people depending on you to make impossible happen. "Thunder 1, this is ground team," I radioed helicopter support. "We are approximately 200 meters south of planned LZ and have one casualty who may not be able to reach extraction point. Request you adjust pickup location to our current position." Response came back immediately, but wasn't what I wanted to hear. "Negative, ground team. Current weather and terrain make alternate LZ impossible. You need to reach planned coordinates for safe extraction. 200 meters might as well have been 2 kilometers in our current situation." With Mitchell barely conscious, Hayes injured, and insurgents closing from multiple directions, reaching original landing zone seemed impossible. I gathered my team for what might be our final tactical decision. "Johnson, can Mitchell make it?" Johnson looked at his patient with professional assessment that comes from years of battlefield medical experience. "With support, maybe. But she's going to need immediate evacuation once we reach helicopters." Davis was studying terrain between our position and landing zone. "There's a saddle in Ridge about halfway to LZ. If we can reach that, it's mostly downhill, but we'll be completely exposed crossing open ground." Williams had been tracking insurgent movement and provided tactical picture that would determine our final approach. Multiple hostiles converging from valley. I count at least 2 separate groups, probably trying to cut off your route to extraction. If you're going to move, it has to be now. Martinez was coordinating with helicopter support and had information adding both hope and pressure. Thunder 1 reports visual contact with LZ. They can see insurgent movement in area and are requesting immediate guidance on providing fire support. This was it, the final push that would determine whether Operation Silent Thunder ended in success or catastrophe. 3 innocent people were counting on us to get them home safely, and we were down to last few minutes of what had been one of most challenging missions any of us had faced. We move now. Fast and hard, I decided. Davis, you take Collins and move toward the saddle. Martinez, you've got Hayes. Johnson, Mitchell is your responsibility. Do whatever you have to do to get her mobile. I'll provide covering fire and rear security. Williams would continue providing overwatch from current position until we were within range of helicopter fire support. Then he'd displace to his own extraction point, where Thunder 2 would pick him up separately. The final phase of Operation Silent Thunder was about to begin, and everything we'd worked for would be determined in next few minutes. Thunder 1, this is ground team, I radioed as we prepared for final push. We are beginning movement to LZ now. Request immediate fire support on insurgent positions in Valley. Copy, ground team. We have visual on multiple hostiles and are cleared hot. Commencing fire support now. Sound of helicopter rotors filled the air as Thunder 1 appeared over ridgeline. Door gunners immediately engaging insurgent positions with devastating effect. 150 caliber machine guns raked the valley floor, forcing enemy fighters to take cover and disrupting their coordinated assault on our position. Go, go, go! I shouted over rotor noise and gunfire. Our small group burst from cover and began final sprint toward extraction. Davis led with Ambassador Collins, both moving with desperation that comes from knowing rescue is within reach. Martinez supported Hayes, who was drawing on reserves he probably didn't know he had. Johnson was carrying Mitchell now, her condition having deteriorated to point where she could no longer support her own weight. His training as combat medic was evident in how he managed to provide life support while navigating treacherous terrain under fire. Thunder 1's fire support was devastating to insurgent forces, but we could see muzzle flashes from multiple positions as enemy fighters tried to engage us despite helicopters' suppressive fire. Rounds were still snapping past us as we covered final meters to landing zone. The extraction zone was a small clearing on ridgeline, barely large enough for one helicopter. Thunder 1 was already in hover, crew chief and door gunner providing covering fire while maintaining position in difficult wind conditions. 30 seconds, the crew chief shouted over intercom and rotor noise. Davis reached helicopter first, immediately helping Ambassador Collins climb aboard. She moved with dignity despite everything she'd endured, pausing only to look back and ensure her colleagues were following. Martinez and Hayes reached aircraft seconds later. Hayes was clearly in significant pain, but managed to climb aboard with assistance. His relief at reaching safety was evident in his face as he settled into cabin. Johnson and Mitchell arrived last, with Johnson carrying her the final meters. She was unconscious now, but Johnson's continuous monitoring had kept her stable throughout ordeal. He immediately began IV fluid administration as soon as they were aboard. I was last man on aircraft, providing rear security until final moment. As I climbed aboard, I could see insurgent fighters emerging from cover positions throughout Valley, their pursuit having failed to prevent our successful extraction. "That's everyone," I shouted to crew chief. "Let's get out of here." Thunder 1 lifted off immediately, climbing rapidly to clear mountain peaks, while door gunners continued providing suppressive fire on any threats below. Within minutes, we were clear of hostile territory and heading toward medical facilities where our rescued diplomats could receive proper care. The flight back to base was subdued. Ambassador Collins, despite her ordeal, was already asking about debriefing procedures and next steps. Hayes was receiving pain medication for his shoulder, but remained alert and engaged. Mitchell was stable, but would need several days of medical treatment to fully recover. Looking back now, at 60 years old, I realize that Operation Silent Thunder represented everything that military service is about. Putting yourself at risk for people you've never met, trusting your teammates with your life, and never giving up, no matter how impossible the situation seems. Ambassador Collins made full recovery and continued her diplomatic service for many more years. Deputy Chief Hayes returned to duty after shoulder surgery and went on to serve in several more high-risk postings. Political Officer Mitchell took longer to recover, but eventually returned to State Department service as well. Every member of my team received decorations for their actions that night. More importantly, we all came home. Williams's precision shooting had been flawless throughout operation. Thompson's demolitions work had been textbook perfect. Martinez's communications had kept us coordinated when it mattered most. Johnson's medical skills had saved Mitchell's life. Davis's point work and tactical skills had gotten us through that compound alive. But what I remember most about Operation Silent Thunder isn't the technical aspects or tactical details. It's the way 6 soldiers worked together as one unit, each man doing his job perfectly while trusting others to do theirs. It's the way we never considered leaving anyone behind, whether they were teammates or civilians we'd been sent to rescue. That's what military service teaches you, that there are things more important than your own safety, that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when circumstances require it, and that the bonds forged in combat last a lifetime. If you're enjoying these real military stories, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and hit that notification bell. Every day, I share experiences from my 25 years of service, the missions that shaped me, and the lessons I learned. Hit that like button if this story meant something to you, and let me know in the comments what you thought about Operation Silent Thunder. And don't forget to check out the additional materials I've pinned in the first comment below. There's information about military tactics, equipment, and the reality of special operations that complements these stories. Until next time, this is Steve Harris reminding you that freedom isn't free, and sometimes it takes ordinary people doing extraordinary things to protect the innocent and bring our people home.